Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm filming this on Halloween, which is why I'm dressed like Miss Frizzle. But that's okay. This will just live rent-free on the internet. That's fine. Today we're going to be talking about the 7th and 10th commandment, which are quite similar, but we're going to talk about the differences. Touched on it briefly, I believe. But we'll just go ahead and dive into it. So the 7th commandment is thou shalt not steal. So 7, good way to remember, 7, thou shalt not steal. 10 is similar, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. So 10, sorry, there's a marker. 10, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. And so I would say the main difference between these two, because they basically just sound like don't take things that don't belong to you. The main difference would be 7 is more so like physical property. Like, okay, I'm going to take so-and-so's car. I'm going to take someone's pencil case. I'm going to rob a bank. Would highly recommend not doing that. And then the 10th commandment is more so thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. And so that has to do with covetous desires, greedful desires. And so similar to how like thoughts in and of themselves aren't sins. So if I have a thought of like, oh, that's a nice car, I want to steal it. If that's just like, oh, that was a weird thought, I don't actually want to steal it, that just thought came into my mind and you kind of push it to the side, okay, that's not a sin. But if you're like, oh, I really want that thing that someone else has, or I want that thing at the store, and you start thinking about like, okay, like this is how I could steal it, you know, oh, nobody's looking, like nobody would know. And so it's that, you know, it has to do maybe more so with the thoughts, but also like the covetous desires of the wanting, not being necessarily satisfied with what you have, being envious of others because of what they have. So yeah, that's probably the main difference between the 7th commandment, 7, thou shalt not steal, and the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. So yeah, I'm gonna have a slide that says those just so that you're not watching me right on the board. Stay tuned. Okay, so with both commandments, we need God's grace, like anything, to fight any temptation. We need God's grace to help us address maybe sinful attitudes or tendencies in our lives. It says on page 216 of your book, God has given the earth and all its resources to the whole human race to take care of and enjoy. When we take care of the earth and distribute its resources equitably, no person needs to live in poverty and hunger. And so in reality, we shouldn't have these covetous desires, but you know, we live in a fallen world, and so we have that tendency towards sin. We have that concupiscence. But in reality, we shouldn't have those covetous desires because we should be giving of ourselves, and so we should have everyone's needs met. And when it comes to faith, if we're rooted in prayer, we should trust that God's going to have the fulfillment of our wants, to have the fulfillment of our desires. And so that can be hard if you're like, oh, I really want this, and it might not necessarily be a bad thing, like, oh, I want to get into this school. But we can't make it obsessive and make it like this is the focal point of our happiness. Getting into this school will be the focal point of our happiness. We should trust that the Lord's going to provide for our desires, even in hardships. We should know that He is there. We see this both in the Old Law and the New Law, or the Old Testament and the New Testament. In Leviticus chapter 25, Leviticus is a dense book full of a lot of rules, so if you want to know a bunch of rules about different sin offerings, that's the book for you. But in that particular chapter, the Lord is very concerned with the poor. He required the Israelites to celebrate this Jubilee year, and we still celebrate Jubilee years in the church to this day. But this Jubilee year was focusing on rest and restoration, celebrating the liberty that they've been in the land, the liberty of the land every 50 years. And so we have a Jubilee every 25 years in the Catholic Church. So this year is actually a Jubilee year, the Jubilee year of hope. And so yeah, take advantage of the Jubilee year of hope for sure. In the new law, we see it in many places. Jesus treats the poor and upholds their dignity quite well. And so we see things like in Luke chapter 6, verses 20 to 21. He says, "Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of God." As well as we see the story of the rich young man, which is in Luke chapter 18, verses 18 to 30. And I'm just keeping it in this mind that when we're made for eternity, we're made for the world that is to come. And so just recognizing we can't take anything with us. And so we should also store up our treasures in heaven. So like when we think of treasures, we think of like, oh, a lot of money, or I don't know, pearl necklace, diamond ring. But no, we should live our lives for the treasures of heaven. And so we should try and grow in the things that are seen of value in heaven. So things like growing in virtues such as humility, purity, prudence, faith, hope, and love, having good discipline in prayer as well. So yeah, I'm also gonna put a few slides up of maybe some quotes or some things I also want you to have in your notes for the next slide. But after that, there's going to be a learning activity on Google Classroom, and you guys should do that, and then you're all set for the day. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you do well. Looking forward to seeing you next class.